show that delivers bite-sized pieces of wisdom so you can learn how to increase your efficiency and productivity, embrace your natural creativity, and lead with impact. I'm Samantha Garrett from Using Technology Better, and joining me on the show today to share their wisdom is Lara Kirk and Huxley. Hi, Lara.
Hi. He's biting. He's LearnBytes, see?
Ooh, he is. And he's the first doggy guest on LearnBytes, so I'm so excited. So, Lara is actually one of my amazing colleagues at Using Technology Better. So she's a technology trainer, and Hux is a dog, clearly. I don't think he does technology training, but
he's my support crew.
Support, well, particularly probably while you're working at home, he could definitely have some publicity for you on the video. Lovely. All right, so Lara, you're here to talk today about creativity, which I'm excited to hear your thoughts on. But before we jump into our 8 questions in 4 minutes, I thought you'd like to share a little bit about what you're passionate about and a little bit about yourself.
Cool. Okay, thanks, Sam. I'm excited to be here. I think we're going to have a good time, and the fact that you welcomed Huxley into the call as well is always something I appreciate. So yes, I'm Lara, and I live in beautiful Queenstown in New Zealand. I grew up here, and it's a pretty amazing place to live, a pretty amazing place to grow up. Lots of outdoorsy things and opportunities for you when you're growing up. I am super passionate about travel and meeting people and going to weird places. I didn't do the normal travel thing when I went overseas to teach. I did some pretty strange things, which is awesome. So I was a teacher for 14 years, and I've been working with Using Technology Better for the last 2.5, and it's been a pretty amazing ride. Did I get that right, Sam? You look like it.
No, I'm sure you did. It's not like I'm keeping count. I was just like, wow, that time, like, it's just amazing how quickly it goes. But it does feel like I've been doing this forever. So yeah.
Yeah, so so loving working with this team, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is creativity, which is something that has really, for me, the team has allowed me to develop a whole lot more of too, working in this job. So I love it. I love working with teachers and with students. Enjoy a bit of the corporate stuff we do as well, but here in New Zealand we're slammed with education at the moment, which is awesome. What else do I like? I like to walk my dog, and I'm lucky because there's some amazing tracks around here, and really, really beautiful. I have far too many houseplants, so I spend a lot of time trying to keep them alive, as well as the pets. And yeah, spending time with my family and my friends, and yeah, I don't know, that's kind of what I do.
I think that's great, because I love the fact that part of what you're passionate about is keeping your plants and your pets alive. I mean, I think that's a good goal for everyone to have.
I think so. I think if you're going to have living things in your house, you should try to keep them alive.
Definitely, definitely. And just so you know, Hux has settled beautifully over your left shoulder in the video, so you couldn't have seen
in a sunbeam.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you, Lara. That's really awesome. So, as you know, the show is all about bite-sized pieces of wisdom. So you've got 4 minutes, 8 questions on creativity, and then if you finish in the time before the timer goes off, you can either ask me a question or I'll just ask you more questions. And I'd love to hear at the end too what the weirdest place you've been to or taught in is. So keep that one in mind for the end. Okay. Yeah, it's not a standard question, but I'm so cool. All right, are you ready if we set the timer?
I am ready, Sam.
Cool.
Let's do this.
All right, I'm going to hit start. First mobile phone and current phone.
I had an Alcatel One Touch Easy. I had to Google that, but they were the ones, they were very cute. It's such a nice looking phone, and it was white, and I loved it. And I currently have an iPhone 8 Plus, also in white with a rose gold back. And yeah, I really like it, but I didn't know that it was an iPhone 8 Plus till I went into the settings and looked that up for this phone call. Just an iPhone.
We're always helping people learn. What can I say?
Totally.
How would you define creativity, and what do you think the key dispositions are that creative people actually display?
I think questioning and being curious are absolutely key. Being innovative and generating new ideas is what it's all about. I've actually got a quote here that I wanted to read out, because I think to me, it really sums it up beautifully. So it's from Osho. To be creative means to be in love with life. You can be creative only if you love life enough that you want to enhance its beauty. You want to bring a little more music to it, and a little more poetry to it, and a little more dance to it. So I think that's really beautiful.
We'll talk more about that at the end. Yes. Oh, that's so gorgeous. What is the biggest myth about creativity you've come across?
I think that you either are or you aren't creative. And I know that there was a lot of research around left brain, right brain, and one side being creative, one side being logical, but there's more and more showing that that is not actually the case. And that creativity can be developed and grown and enhanced. And I know this personally, like being artsy doesn't necessarily mean you're creative. And to be creative, you don't have to be artsy. They're not the same thing. They're very, very different things. And I think digging into that, people realize that really quickly, but it's not so much surface knowledge when you think about creatives.
When, where, and how do you express yourself most creatively?
It's a hard word. I think, and that was a really good question, but I think when there's a good challenge, or the opportunity is really open, so when there aren't a lot of confines around what the task is, so thinking big picture, like what if there was no barriers to this? What could it be? And then we're looking at any barriers around that afterwards. For me, being in a nice environment is quite important. I quite like things to be neat and tidy. So like I said, I've got lots of plants in my house, there's lots of art in my house. So having a space that I feel comfortable in, I'm very spatially aware with that kind of thing too.
Interesting. All right, you've got 1:30 left and we're up to question 5. Biggest barrier to creativity?
Busyness. So in education, that means a packed curriculum where there's no time for flexibility, high demands in terms of assessment and what you have to get through. In life, busyness, no time to stop and think and appreciate what's going on. Our brains are working so hard all the time.
So what strategies have you used to try and overcome that business in creativity?
I think carving time out for movement, just a walk or whatever it is, or time to sit and think. I'm really lucky because in my job, I have time to be creative, and that's a big part of what I do. So since coming into this job, I'm way more creative and I don't need to actively seek out those strategies anymore. But as a teacher, making time, dropping something, because you have to drop something to make space for something else.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Book, podcast, or video that you would recommend to our readers not our readers, we don't have readers, to our listeners or our watchers.
We might. They could have closed captions on.
They might be reading the transcript, true.
Yeah, totally. So my 2 favourite podcasts, and I'm a bit of a science geek, so it's Stuff You Should Know. I love it because they just talk about really random topics, but it's so interesting. So in terms of engaging creativity and curiosity, that one's awesome. And The Infinite Monkey Cage is another one of my favourites as well. Very, very sciencey and love it.
Interesting. 5 seconds. What creative project would you dedicate your time and energy to if you knew it was guaranteed to succeed?
Probably wouldn't do it, because if it's guaranteed to succeed, I wouldn't have the motivation to do it. So for me, it needs to be a challenge. But if I was to say that, it'd be something that will help others and serve a purpose, tied into my passions, and also helps me to learn.
Wow, that's so interesting, Lara. I love that. So the motivation comes from knowing that it could fail.
Well, I was thinking about it, I was like, guaranteed to succeed, you wouldn't have to be as creative if it's guaranteed to succeed. If it's a challenge, then you have to think about lots of alternative ways that it could be meeting the needs or whatever it is. If it's guaranteed to succeed, you might choose 1 or 2 things that you initially think of and go with that path, rather than really dive deeper into what it is you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting way to look at it. Thank you. And I actually really love asking that question, because there's so many different responses and it really gets you thinking differently. So yeah, thank you, Lara. That's awesome. I just wanted to go back. I would love it if you would reread that quote, because I think that was so amazing.
Sure. To be creative means to be in love with life. You can be creative only if you love life enough that you want to enhance its beauty. You want to bring a little more music to it, a little more poetry to it, a little more dance to it.
That's so beautiful. I just wanted everyone to hear it again. And we will actually put a link to that too in the notes, because I think that just gets us all really thinking too, particularly what you were saying about the whole creativity and artsy thing being like together. It's actually not about that at all. So yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Lara. Is there anything you wanted to add to anything you said?
I think along those lines, like something I've been thinking about a lot is creativity in areas that aren't necessarily known for creativity by people who aren't working in them. So even like, sorry, I'm going to keep bringing it back to education a little bit because that's where my head's at. But, mathematics is not something that people would naturally think it's a creative field. but it absolutely is, because you're creating solutions to problems and different ways to solve things and finding lots of different ways to go about it. So it is problem solving, and to solve problems you have to be creative. To find solutions you have to be creative. So creativity very naturally, I think we all think of it in terms of the arts or language arts or history and culture and all that, but it's actually through everything we do. And developing that creativity. What's another way you could do that is really important. And I guess one tip I would give to teachers if they're looking to do it, and it's something I often do when I'm in classes, is to tell your kids we're going to think like designers, creators, and inventors with everything that we do. So designers, creators, and inventors are constantly thinking, what would happen if? How might I? I wonder if. And so as a teacher, when you hear those questions, that's the moment you go, yes, we're on the right path, and you go for it. And even as people working on projects as adults, those questions will help you to find lots of other possibilities and hopefully lead you to something, I guess a solution if it is solution finding that you're working on, or something that is really new and unique.
Yeah, and that comes back to the key dispositions that you said at the start around curiosity and questioning. It's exactly what you just said by thinking about that designer, creator, inventor. So that makes sense, completely links that together. So brilliant. Well, Lara, I did say I wanted to find out what your most interesting place was. So we will do that. And then once you've told us that, I would love you to let us know where people could find you or connect with you if they want to find out more.
Yeah.
And maybe see pictures of hugs. I don't know.
Oh,
sure. Cool. So I just thought too, the poor people listening to the podcast, I'm sorry you're not going to see gorgeous hugs in the podcast, obviously.
Oh,
but if you check out the YouTube video version, you could have a nice little doggy treat there.
Maybe the cover photo for the podcast should have Huxley in it as well.
Oh, I think we could do that. Totally. We'll make sure that happens. All right. Wrap up.
So, I was very fortunate that I spent a few years teaching overseas, and I went down a different pathway than one of the standard sort of London ones. And I taught in international schools in the Middle East, and then in Ethiopia for 3 years, and then Thailand for 2 years. I guess during that time I travelled to some pretty awesome off the beaten path places like Yemen and Madagascar, lots of spots inside Ethiopia as well. And yeah, there were so many, but probably one of my favourites to look back on probably is Yemen. It was at a moment in time where things were relatively peaceful. And Sana, which is the beautiful old UNESCO World Heritage Site city there, is one of the most stunning things I've ever seen. And as a kid, when I dreamt of travel, I dreamt of feeling different being somewhere, like actually feeling different. And that's probably the strongest place that I almost felt transported back in time. And it's really hard, and look up photos of it, because it's just these incredible mud brick buildings that they put the next layer on for the next generations of families, so you get these skyscraper looking things. And they've obviously, Yemen, there's been a lot of sort of fighting and war and, you know, some pretty horrible stuff going on there. So I feel really fortunate that I got to go there and see that, and it was stunning. The culture and the people and everything was pretty amazing. So yeah, so very lucky to have gone to those beautiful places. Yeah, I don't know, there were some pretty weird ones. I'm struggling to remember them now, but yeah.
That's okay, that's enough. And yeah,
Lara in her 20s was very intrepid.
I love that you said it makes you feel different. That's so interesting. So brilliant. All right, now we better keep this bite so I've got to wrap it up. But where can people find you, Lara, before we go?
I will actually need to look up what my Twitter handle is, but I think it's we'll put it on the screen or something.
We'll put it in the, it'll be on the screen in the link.
I think it's just at Lara_Kirk. All of my stuff's pretty basic. Like, yeah, Instagram is mostly Huxley, so if that's what you're after, Lara Kirk on Instagram. And then I'm on LinkedIn and yeah, on Twitter as well.
No worries, we'll put all the links there. And fantastic. All right, Lara, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your dogs with us today. I'm very appreciative.
Thank you, Sam. Loving the series. You're doing an awesome job.
Oh, that's lovely.
And if you've got recommendations for people for Sam to interview on this, send them through to her.
Well, yeah, totally. That's a really good point. Yeah, if you think you know someone who has got really interesting things to say about any of our key 3 topics, the creativity, the leadership, the efficiency, and the productivity, totally, yeah, get in touch with me and hook me up with them and we can have a chat and get them on the show. I'd love that. Thank you, Lara. Good thought.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. So that is it for today. So if you have enjoyed the conversation with Lara and enjoyed seeing Hux, then you might want to subscribe to the Using Technology Better YouTube channel. Or of course, if you're listening to the podcast version of the show, you can follow us so you get notified about all the new episodes. Now, if you've not already signed up for our fortnightly newsletter full of efficiency and productivity and organization tips, then the link to that is below. So that's it for today, but I will see you again soon for another bite-sized piece of the learning adventure that is life. See you then.